Alrighty. Um, Hi, my name is Cheese. I'm going to be doing another development chat today, or developer chat, something. There we go. I flubbed my intro, which is very, very in my style. I'll be chatting today with Splerp, who is also Splop on Twitter. We're going to be talking about a game called The Owl, the Thief, and the Strawberries. Splurp, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello. My name is Splurp, B.I. Phelps sometimes. Um, yeah, I mean, you basically covered it. I'm working on a game called The Other Thief and the Strawberries. I guess a little bit of background. I've been making games as a hobby since I was a kid, so what's that, about 15 years now.
Nice.
Um, and yeah, The Other Thief and the Strawberries is sort of my first attempt at a game that I think is good enough to actually sell. So if we actually get to that point, we'll see. But yeah, that's basically it.
I'm enjoying it. I'm very excited by what I've seen in the developer builds. It's pretty exciting to me. So before we begin, just so we sort of give time for things to wind up and people to come in, how things are going to work. We're just going to have generally a long rambling chat about game development and whatever else comes up. If anybody in chat has any questions, feel free to ask them, and I'll try and work them into the conversation. Um, I'm going to be playing the game at the same time, which may lead to um, moments of silence or terrified screams as I run away from an owl. But no, we'll be good. We'll be fine. Um, and there was something else I was going to say, but that's completely fallen out of my head, so never mind. Would you like to, in your own words, explain what the owl, the thief, and the strawberries is in terms of what you would want people to know going in?
Yep. I guess so. It's a 2D platformer. Uses pixel art. It focuses on exploration, and there's a few puzzle elements in there. Um, the basic setting is that, well, it's in the title, I suppose. You're a thief, and you've been hired to infiltrate this ancient library and kind of uncover a lot of lost knowledge from it. So the gameplay is you exploring this library and climbing up the ladders onto the shelves and looking in books, trying to find this information, um, which sounds pretty easy. But the problem is that you didn't bring any gear with you. The only thing you thought to bring was your lunch, which is 4 strawberries. Um, so you have to somehow get through the library just using these strawberries effectively. And the other thing that makes things harder is that there's this giant owl, this owl that is sort of the guardian of the library that doesn't want anybody stealing any knowledge. So that's also chasing you around. So you have to you're kind of working through the library, solving puzzles as you go, but you're also avoiding this giant owl that keeps on hunting you down.
So we're playing a excuse me. We're playing a dev build at the moment, which has a couple of bits of debug text floating around. So for anybody who sees that and is a little bit confused, that's what that is all about. Um, I I feel like in general this is a game where you probably I feel like don't want. Okay, yeah, no, don't do that. Never mind. The the stream started playing in the background. Um, I feel like it's a kind of game where you sort of don't necessarily want players to know a lot of information or have a lot of detail going in. Um, in my mind, exploration is sort of a big part of the experience. Is that something that you feel? Is that something that you're aiming for with what's going on here?
Yeah, I think yeah, exploration for sure, and sort of exploring the library, but also having to discover. I don't want them too hidden, but like having to discover the mechanics. So I feel like a lot of really old games I used to play, you'd go in not understanding anything, and you'd just have to play it to work out what's happening. And I kind of want to bring some of those elements into my game, but still make it, I still want it to be usable. Like
So want to be
I
approachable.
want the features to be discoverable, yeah, approachable, but
Yeah.
yeah, kind of that
I think that's something that's
old
been
style.
lost a lot. Like contemporary UX sensibilities sort of say that you don't want to let people have the opportunity to feel lost, and you want to minimize any potential friction points from not knowing what it is that you're doing, or or how things work. I feel like in
Yeah, yeah,
general
like
there's a lot less room for just discovery at a personal level.
yeah, tutorialization comes to mind. Like
Yeah,
when
yeah.
the player turns around and then you get a screen saying you're not allowed to turn around. uh, yeah, so I think yeah, having the game speak for itself, I guess.
I like that, and I find it refreshing when I come across a game that does it. It feels comparatively rare these days, so it's always good to see. Now, you mentioned last night when we were talking that this cave that's just off to the right is new and art that you haven't spent as much time polishing as some of the other art. So there's a mix of work in progress things in this build, along with things that have been a little bit more polished. Um, yeah, how long have you been working on this game, would you say?
First started in 2019 when I originally made it for a game jam. So it was an old it's by Game Dev Network, and they were running a jam called the Book Jam. So the theme was basically books, and I just started out asking, how can I want to be able to generate a shelf and then fill it with books. So given a shelf width, I want to, how can I create like a bookshelf graphic with a bunch of books on it? So that was the starting point for the whole game, and I didn't have a big uh, plan, of course, for the game jam. I just kind of went in whatever direction it came up. So I think from adding the shelf, I think after that I added ladders so you could climb up to the books, and then just just adding one thing at a time like that. So originally in 2019, the game was done in about 10 days,
Yep.
and then I think 6 months passed. Then I came back to the game for another 2 weeks and added a few new features, and then another 6 months passed, and then I worked on the game for another couple of months. So I've technically been working on it since 2019, but actual dev time, I don't know. It's hard to say. Maybe 6 months, 8, 9 months.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And it hasn't been, as you say, it hasn't really been your full time focus. But I feel like sometimes when you're not for that entire period, I feel like sometimes, and I don't know whether you've experienced this, but I feel like sometimes when I've taken a break from a game and I can come back to it fresh. Um, in the meantime, in the back of my mind, in my subconscious, I've managed to build enthusiasm for and refine thoughts about things that I want to achieve. And it lets me work and create things in a more focused manner. Is it something that you feel like you experience as well?
Uh, Definitely, but I'm trying to think of an example of when exactly that has happened. No, for sure. So I guess the owl comes to mind. So when the game was originally released, the 10-day release, um, there was an owl that, well, in fact, there were multiple owls. There were multiple owls that would sort of hop between the shelves and try to search you out like that. Um, and now 3 years later, none of that code is used anymore. The owl's been completely reworked, and I think
Hmm.
even at the time I had feedback saying, "Oh, the owl doesn't feel very fair," and stuff like that. So um, it's taken a long time to mull things over and work out where I want to go, like what direction I want to go with the owl and how it interacts with the player.
I feel like of the stuff that I've seen, um, the owl has developed in a way that's created a more exciting, engaging experience that builds tension in a cool way. It's been fun to watch that grow over time.
Yeah, yeah. The original ones, I liked the original owls used to be half the size. Um,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and I just had one offhand comment that was just like, "Oh, you could just make it bigger." I'm like, "Yeah, didn't think of that." That was an easy win for making the owl a little bit scarier. So yeah, it's been nice getting feedback and slowly building towards something I'm happy with.
So what I'm doing at the moment is down here in the bottom left-hand corner we have an objective which says find, and it has the name of a book, which is red, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. Um, but it's this book here, and if I open this book, we can see that it's full of lines. The debug text at the bottom tells us tells us what's going on, but if we ignore that, what we're looking for is the thing below the book title is a line of text with a question mark in it, and we're looking for that line of text so that we can identify the glyph that's missing. And it might be the dark text or the light text. And I was surprised at how effective that is at, I don't know if misdirection is the right word, but at least leaving room for getting it wrong, right? Like for not noticing things. Have you felt like that's been a tricky thing to balance? Is that something that you've been actively pursuing?
The book contents is something that's like the page layouts. That's something that's been in there since the original Game Jam. So it's sort of pending a rework, I think.
Okay.
I I let me think.
Do you have any
Um,
plans that or thoughts for things that you would like to achieve with it?
I like the idea that because at the moment the runes are completely randomly generated and spaces are randomly generated to pretend that there were words.
Yeah.
I kind of like the idea that there were actual real language rules that dictated how the pages were laid out instead of being completely random. Um, I think one thing I did do was that the books used to be like 40 pages long, and it was just such a chore trying to find the text. So in terms of balancing, reducing the length of the books was definitely something I had to do.
Yeah,
So I
right,
think
right.
the max length might be 20 pages now, but you wouldn't like average 10 pages because it can be hard. It can, yeah, like you said, sometimes you just miss it completely, and you don't want to have to go through the same book 3 or 4 times just to find this one piece of text
Right, right.
when it's that long.
Um, I feel like over the past, I don't know, like 6 months, I guess, a large amount of focus has gone into things like these spider webs and refining the lighting system, and in general, working on things that support the atmosphere of an abandoned and potentially slightly creepy library. How conscious do you feel you are of the atmosphere that you're creating, and is that something that you're sort of specifically putting a lot of effort into working towards?
Yeah, it's definitely a big focus because I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely a focus. Definitely like all the things you mentioned, the cobwebs, the lighting, so mood lighting, I suppose. Uh, the other things that come to mind is like at the top of the screen, you can see some of the eyes they blink from time to time.
They're great. I
You'll
love
also,
them.
yeah, you also see rats around the place, like hiding between the books, and if you go near the books, they'll jump out and run off. So just kind of all those things trying to make it feel a little bit more like a living place, I guess. I want it to feel abandoned, but I don't want it to feel. I want it to be like an abandoned library that nobody goes to, but it's not lifeless. Like it feels like there's life there, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
So we've picked up three glyphs and a map piece, or a map piece, a scrap piece of paper, I guess. um, but the scrap pieces of paper we'll look at in a second. They're kind of new, and at the moment they're sitting over the top of some of the other UI,
Yeah, I'll write
um,
that down.
which is not yeah, work in progress stuff. It's fine. But we now have like a whole bunch of these glyphs here, and we can make a phone call.
I hope this works. I haven't tested this much since I changed the phone booth location, but
That's
I'll
the
give it a
three
go.
glyphs that we picked up, and the person on the other end is happy with our work, I guess. And now we have lots of money to pick up.
It fell through
Wait,
some of the floor.
oh no!
Oh no, it didn't. Wait, it's working?
I picked up the phone from down here.
Oh,
Well, that's fun. Game dev.
that's actually a feature.
Yeah, yeah.
long
It's got a
distance
very
calls.
long cable on it. So we've got a whole bunch of money now. We can go off and explore over here. I love the screen shake when you step away from the gate there, and we can. I love this silhouette of us overlooking this vast cavern.
There's actually a technical reason for that because the whole game is all it's done in a palette of 16 colors. So on screen you only ever see 16 colors because I wanted the gold coins to because you start throwing these gold coins into the pit, and as they stack up, you start seeing different. What am I trying to say? If you have so many gold coins that they don't fit on the screen anymore, a layer will kind of get pushed
Oh
into the
right, yeah,
background,
yeah,
and you start a second layer, and that background layer needs to have like a darker yellow.
yep,
So I've actually used up all of the colors with coin shades, and so the
yep.
thief can't be rendered correctly anymore.
There's
So
not
he
enough
shows up as
left.
silhouette.
Yeah, that's cool. So in this, if you does it spew out coins for as long as you're holding down the button, or do you press it once and it spews out all the coins?
Press it once and spews them all out.
Hmm. My initial thought
You actually,
was that it spat out as long as you held down, and I was like, oh, I'm just going to spit out a little bit and then stop and continue talking. And I was like, no, no, stop. um, that's interesting that I came away with the impression that it was like an action that persisted as long as I held the button down. It's always
think
always funny the way that people interpret and frame their own experiences in ways that match their own assumptions and projections that don't necessarily align to whatever is going on. I don't know if there are any good examples in this game, but there are other games I've made where people tell me, "Oh, I liked that this happened," and I'm like, "You made that up." uh, that's come entirely from you, but that's really cool that you've been able to connect with it in this way and come up with something that is for you at least an integral part of the experience that has elevated it in a way that than it wouldn't have on its own. I feel like lower fidelity experiences generally leave more room for that to happen.
yeah. Something that comes to mind, sort of related to that, is when a game will sort of hint at, like the background story or the world building and stuff.
Some
So they
piece
only
of
give
lore,
very
yeah.
small bits about it, and then people have a lot of fun filling in the gaps and trying to guess what they're trying to convey there. And I'm sure there are developers out there that will take take what people have suggested. Oh, maybe it could be this and this, and then they go, "Oh, that's a great idea. Let's make it that." Um,
Yeah. Yeah, it happens. And there's also, I think that's something else that maybe is a little less present these days. Like, not just in games, but in film and culture in general, is people. I don't know if people necessarily want it, but people who make stuff feel like there's cultural pressure to be explicit about everything and not leave things ambiguous so much. And like looking at games, everything is there's a wiki for everything, and nobody's really that interested in imagining things for themselves or guessing or coming up with their own ideas. It's like, oh, I'm going to go and look on the wiki and find out what the answer is. And I guess it dovetails into that whole like leaving room for discovery and leaving room for mystery. There's a game that I worked on that has a lot of things that you unlock and things that you discover as you progress. And there was a person who had more or less never played before who was asking questions about things that change the way that the game ends, I guess, or change the framing of the ending of the game. And I'm kind of like, well, I can tell you, but that's taking away your opportunity to find and see stuff that I feel like I don't want to tell you all the game's secrets, like,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it
yeah.
boggles my mind that people want to know that stuff right at the beginning. It's very
It's
tricky.
only the thing that comes to mind for me is Minecraft. I feel like is saying Minecraft a cop out? But um, I feel like the first time I played it, it was really fun, sort of trying to discover the different crafting recipes. But when I play it these days, like when we
Yeah,
come back to it 2 years later, we just go, okay, let's look at the wiki and find out what new things have been released, and oh, that's how we craft them. And yeah, it's a different experience for sure.
definitely a different experience. It reminds me of Don't Starve, which is a game that I played when it was in early access, I think. Um, and
Oh,
yeah,
I played it. It's great. Yeah.
I really enjoy that game, but it is such a different game when you're playing with someone who knows all the recipes, or when you're playing with someone who looks up a wiki or whatever. Oh, that's if you're playing multiplayer, or if you're playing single player as a shared experience. But yeah, it's totally different when instead of asking yourself, what can I try in order to discover how I survive for the next season, you're asking, how do I survive for the next season? Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's a tricky thing to balance because like it's definitely off-putting to feel like, especially with something like Minecraft or Don't Starve, is there's just a overwhelming amount of stuff to find and discover and absorb. Um, and I think it kind of goes beyond what a lot of people are gonna think is reasonably achievable um, for a play session. Like if you're just sitting down to play for 20 minutes and have fun, um, you're probably not going to get as much enjoyment out of dying because you made a mistake, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think Minecraft probably sits in the same kind of situation. I jumped really high for a second there. I have no idea why.
Oh, ah,
I don't know if you saw it. I went like higher than that
I
pin.
did see that.
I had magic powers for the briefest moment.
That's a bit
um,
interesting.
yeah, so we
Anyway,
also picked up a hang on, what was the button that I had to press? Was it V?
I'll hold down.
Oh, 5.
If you want all of the pieces for free, press 5. Or
Yeah,
hold down 5. Yeah.
and then we go and sit in the chair, I think. There we go. Hooray! All right. So there's pieces of scrap paper that we found in the book there. This is a new um this is a new piece of gameplay that I'm pretty excited by. I'm very keen to see where this goes and how it adds to the sense of collecting not only money, which doesn't feel like it has any immediate value. Like right now, it's just a score and doesn't really have any gameplay consequences for accumulating money. But these bits of scrap paper you can assemble into a. Let's see if we can work out where these things go. I feel like I'm at a disadvantage when it comes to presenting this stuff because I already know what the layout for this one looks like. But yeah, I really enjoy what's going on here and the idea that you're collecting over time a whole bunch of pieces. You know, it might take. I don't know how frequently. Well, I guess that is a question. How frequently are you planning to surface these parts? Like, how many trips into the museum are you expecting that a player would have to make before they could assemble an entire piece?
I reckon so. Every puzzle is going to be the overall layout of that section of the library. So I think to complete a full jigsaw puzzle, you need to fully explore a whole section of library.
Okay.
I haven't
Yeah.
quite
Yeah.
worked out how big that's going to be. I really like the idea of this huge, expansive library that you can get lost in. Uh,
Hmm.
but I feel like I might be limited by how many mechanics are in the game. It can feel very samey at the moment. You just kind of go, okay, walk past this screen, walk past this screen. Uh, so
Hmm.
maybe it's a huge library that takes hours and hours to find all the pieces. Maybe it's, a couple of hours. But yeah, I think it would be something you would do over the course of multiple play sessions.
Yeah.
It's kind of, yeah.
Yeah. I I think that would align with the kinds of things that I am enjoying about this game.
Hey.
I think we talked like last time we talked. I think we mentioned this idea of maybe having like some special rooms that feel unique and different from everything else, and discovering those could be a driver for exploring a more expansive library if everything else
Yeah,
feels kind of samey. The idea that you're gonna go and find this room that has a lot of stained glass windows in it or something, or you're gonna go and find this other room that has a few
and stained glass
statues,
windows.
or this fancy chandelier room. Um, yeah, like
Gold.
yeah,
This is solid gold. Writing all this down. Yeah, yeah. Ideally, I have infinite money. I mean, infinite time and money.
yeah,
To like all the rooms feel special and unique. That'd be great. I think that'd be a good compromise though. So like we can have a big library and sure, a lot of the rooms are just shelves with books on them. It is a library. You've got this. You could still feel excited about moving through them because you feel like you're making progress to these special rooms.
yeah, yeah. I it could be interesting if especially if these maps help you find those special rooms, or
Yeah, yeah.
identify where they might be located. Um, and then the idea of like maybe you could carry something from one special room to another as part of solving a larger puzzle that's really only
Yeah.
doable once you've really explored a fair chunk of the library could open up opportunities to allow you to keep doing the same kind of stuff, but discover, guide you towards discovering and valuing discovering more parts of the.
It's a really interesting idea. Something that I've thought about a lot with this game is that as I start adding more features, like recently I've added walls that you can't walk through, because now that means that you can design levels with a bit of verticality. Uh, I'm gonna eventually have a use for gold, so there's gonna be. I was thinking switches that open doors, but all these ideas that I'm coming up with, it just makes me feel like I'm moving towards a generic platformer. That's something
Hmm.
that's not quite as interesting. I think, yeah, I've kind of been stuck on how do I make the rooms have more content, but also not just be a normal like how is it different from other puzzle platformers?
Yeah.
I like the idea that it's not just you're on a new room now you need to solve the room's puzzle, move on to the next room. Maybe
Yeah.
I like the idea that you
Giving some
actually
connections between the rooms.
yeah, go back and forth. Like, oh, we found this item, and now we can go back, and it's sort of like a Castlevania, Metroidvania. What's the term? Where
Yeah.
you're going back and you go, oh, I don't know what this is. I might have to come back to this. I like that in games.
Yeah. I gotta say I'm less literate when it comes to Metroidvanias, but that is something that I quite enjoy as well. Like anything that, and this is something that I think is a focus of Metroidvanias, anything that recontextualizes spaces that you've already visited is an opportunity for resonance. Resonance is something that matters a lot to me when I'm when I'm thinking about making experiences. Um, that's what makes things memorable. That's what makes things meaningful. Um, and yeah, giving new meaning to something familiar is one powerful way of achieving that. I think it definitely tickles a an itch that I feel driven to pursue.
Yeah, yeah. I know a couple of people, or I have an opinion that I guess to share with other people as well. That it's sort of like what you're talking about, where you get more out of it when you realize, oh, this whole time this has meant this. Like,
Yeah,
oh, I knew about that ages ago, but only now do I understand what it means. It all clicks. It's all coming together. Versus a bit more like, I don't know. I can't think of any example games that do it. So I'm sort of what's this straw man argument here? But but the versus oh, and now a path has suddenly revealed itself that you know. you get to the end of the game and go, oh, that starting room, we've added a new teleporter in there, and it's like, okay, well, I don't know how to feel
Yeah, it
about
doesn't
this.
change the
I didn't.
meaning of anything, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I've got a really somebody gave me a really good idea for the vault. I think that's going to be very interesting. So like the vault where you throw your money in,
Yeah.
they have the idea that if you fill the vault all the way to the very top, you can actually use the money to traverse to the other side of the screen and reveal a new area behind it.
Oh yeah, right. I
I
was
think
gonna
that would
ask
be very,
about that
very
wall
cool.
off to the left. It kind of felt like it was inviting, uh, or just didn't feel like it was consistently shaped with the rest of the room
Okay,
there.
no,
It
that's
definitely
just my art
attracts my
skills, I
interest.
think.
Okay, yeah.
But no, actually, I can say yes, of course.
Yeah,
I've always
brilliant.
I see all those things in advance. It's
Um, Something that I enjoy here is we haven't really touched on the strawberries yet, but we can throw these strawberries around. Um, it might mean that we don't have anything to eat, but eventually you might throw a strawberry while you're standing on a ladder, and you will notice that it does this, which is pretty cool. What was that something that you had in the original prototype?
yeah, I think it was probably one of the very first things. So I was saying before that the first thing I did was add the shelves. Second thing was I thought,
Oops.
oh well, the thief needs to get to the ladders, or the player needs to get to the shelves. So we'll add some ladders,
Hmm.
and then I think the very first puzzly thing was let's move the ladders around. So you need to move ladders to solve the puzzles. So I think it might have been one of the very first things that got added. Oh, actually, fun fact about the strawberries is that they were originally just pebbles, so you're going around throwing rocks, basically.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was working on adding in the palette stuff, so the 16 color palette, and I'd accidentally set the wrong colors to the pebble. The pebble was meant to be like a blue and a dark blue, and they'd actually come out as red and green accidentally. And I thought, oh, that looks like strawberries. So that's the only reason that they're strawberries is accidental palette
It's fun though,
mess
like
up.
it
Oh,
suggests something. Um, if you've got this narrative that, oh, you've brought us your lunch, that's kind of fun and funny in a cute little
yeah,
way. It's also how do you feel like all this takes place in one night
I think the thief is living his whole life here, like in isolation, and it takes
with
place
four
over a long
strawberries?
time. Yes, with the same four strawberries. Maybe he should start getting concerned. He's like, hang on, they're not even dusty. What's happening with these strawberries?
Like the idea that maybe the thief's existence isn't exactly what it might appear to be on the surface. Is he really here? Is time really passing? Who knows? The library
Ooh,
has
that's it.
its own rules and
Maybe
its own.
maybe it's all a dream.
Yeah, could all be a dream. I
Write
like
that
it.
down. Or maybe, yeah, because I got the idea that if you die as the thief,
Mm,
you continue playing as somebody, say 50 years later, they rediscover, or they rediscover this valley, they jump in and they become the new thief that's
yeah.
being paid money, and it's 50 years has passed, so the library has sort of gotten all dusty again. Um, but I don't think that, yeah, I mean that doesn't
It's kind of fun.
mean that the current thief can't just have his whole adventure in a single night. I kind of like that
Yeah.
idea.
Have you considered incentivizing? I mean, you've already got some stuff that guides the player back into the back into their house. Particularly now that we've got the puzzle pieces and stuff. Um, are you considering letting the player eat a meal and have a drink?
That'd be nice. I thought, oh, it's like I've already got the sitting in a chair code now for
Yeah,
downstairs, so I can do that. I do need to think about the fact that there's a steaming mug and a bowl of soup
They
like
have their
actually
animations.
there.
Yeah.
I think it might be nice if you could sit down and then the bowl of soup empties itself, something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. That'd be kind of
Um,
fun.
yeah. Um,
And you were saying
yeah,
that these
it would
books
be.
here
Yeah.
will appear as you collect stuff?
No, I haven't said that,
Oh,
but I
okay.
like the idea. Um,
I dreamed it then.
th- yeah. Well, all the empty brown panels on the walls is where the the finished puzzles are meant to appear.
Right, right.
Um,
There
but I
was
didn't bother with any aligning yet because the art's going to be completely reworked and the dimensions will probably change too.
right, right. There was a shelf with the purple books here downstairs before. Is that right?
Yeah, there was
That
a
might be what I'm
yeah,
thinking
there
of.
were like five platforms on the ground that just showed like, oh, you found book one, book two, book three, book four, book five. But really, that the purple book mechanic was a stand-in for the actual lore, jigsaw puzzle stuff. So that purple
Yeah,
book thing
okay.
probably won't exist anymore.
Right. I think that I've been playing long enough now that we will probably see the owl soon.
Yeah, if he
There he
there he is.
is. I liked it the first time you see him. He's not interested. He's on his way somewhere else. He's got stuff to do.
Yeah, that's in my head. This is the introduction sequence that lets the player know, okay, you have to watch out. There's this owl. Um, at the moment, it's very basic. It just says on when you enter the screen, have the owl fly off. I
Yeah.
think in my head, the final version is going to be you're walking along, you're behind a wall. Uh,
Well, you've got rats in
also,
there already, right?
yeah, exactly. So what happens is you're going to startle a rat,
Hmm.
or maybe a rat just jumps off and runs off, and then as it runs off screen right, the owl comes in and grabs it and eats it
And then
in front of
shrieks.
you. Yeah, and then like makes a spooky sound, and then flies off, and that lets you know that the owl is dangerous instead of just, and it gives you a bit of time to actually process that the what's happening. Like at the moment, it's like you've got what like 3 seconds, and then the owl's off screen, and
Oh no.
you don't even know if it's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah. And so we can escape by going into the. Oh no.
Uh-oh.
Did it teleport to that candle?
Oh yeah, that's dodgy. He puts out candles, but it's
Oh,
the
I'm very
radius
unhealthy.
for a nearby
Oh no, I'm
candle
fast
is,
again. Okay.
yeah, you'll slowly regain your speed. Um, yeah, he detects candles way too far away.
Right.
Of what's this? I need to reduce that radius.
I thought I was safe there. I was like, oh yeah, I can do this. I can handle this. I'm a pro. Uh,
um, I'm gonna with the new lighting visibility stuff, like when you're on the edge of the shelf or near walls, you can see that the light's not going through the walls, which is exciting to me.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I
it's
think
rad.
that with that, the way it works is there's this visibility polygon calculated, which just says from this point, where can light touch? And I think it's going to be really good to reuse that code as a um, based off the owl's position. What can it see?
Yeah, yeah.
So you
Well, I
can
mean,
hide
you've already
behind
got that
walls.
code, so
Yeah,
why not?
yeah.
Is that it? That's it. Hey. Uh-oh. Uh. Oh no, I can get out of here. You don't have its head poking through the door yet either, do you?
No, no. Once I've got a big rework of the owl, like based off your feedback for improved graphics in general, and I'm going to do a whole animations pass, and
Yeah,
owl head
nice.
will be part of that, I think.
I I quite like the owl. Um, and I feel a little bit bad last time we were talking, saying that the owl feels like the visually the weakest aspect of the game. Um, but I only say that because like the rest of the game is so strong. I really enjoy just the general aesthetics of what's going on here, and I also enjoy um yeah, just the style and the atmosphere and the tone and stuff. Like it's all pretty good. It's all very good.
Yeah, I think that yeah, I guess I, as the developer, I can be very critical. The There's definitely a lot of stuff I'd want to improve, like art, like the art everywhere, like especially on the like outside the library, the whole backdrop where you can see the castle in the background.
Hmm.
I'm not very happy with how that castle looks, and especially the outdoor view of your house. That's going to be completely reworked.
It's
I
cute
think it's
though.
going to, yeah, yeah, but there's just something about it that's just like, I don't like the window. At least it kind of matches the layout of the house inside, so I'm happy with that. But I think
Yeah.
I'm going to make the outdoor house a little bit bigger on the screen.
Yep.
The fact that it's almost the same width and height as the castle in the background bothers me a little bit. Um,
Hmm.
and those trees that I've just added, that was a what 40-second 40-second
Yeah, I was gonna say
addition.
yesterday
Um,
that the trees felt like they could do with a bit of work, but you said that they were placeholder. I was like, yeah, well, that's all good then.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
You've only got one green to work with, right?
yeah. I,
Hmm.
yeah, I think I'm gonna play around with like changing the palette of the backdrop. Like if you look at the castle in the background, the hill, there's like a dark blue, and that's the only place it appears. And I think there's room there to reuse that color for something more useful in the foreground.
Hmm. Hmm. I guess also, it's nighttime, right? Um, you could potentially get away with um maybe using the light grey from the castle as highlights on the tree, just to sort of suggest a different, suggest like bright moonlight or something going onto the
Yeah,
tree
yeah,
as another option for exploring depth there. I don't know how well that'd work though. Like color is not my forte, so I'm just talking out
yeah.
my backside here. I like these mushrooms. They're kind of fun. I want to pick them up though.
Yeah, there's like, oh, we've got water, blue mushrooms.
Yeah, the,
Um, One of the limitations for the palette here is that the um the thief, he's got orange and red on him.
that can
But then
change, right?
when you, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
the thieves have used like 5 or 6 different colors between all of the different looks, and that kind of restricts the palette a lot. Um, so I think I need to think about that too. Maybe could the thief even be silhouetted on the overworld? I'm not sure.
Oh yeah. You can't. Are you're not changing the palette during a single screen, right?
Uh, oh, like as you scroll across.
Hmm.
Oh, okay. Like on the left side, there's some trees and greenery, so you have a lot of greens in your palette, and then as you walk to the right, it
Can
soft
free
like
those up
swaps it out.
potentially.
Something with the reds and the yellows of the telephone.
Yeah.
That's a good thought. I hadn't thought about it. I'll write it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, any good tricks to keep to the 16 color limit, but looking around it like that, yeah, I really like that idea.
All right. Well, if for anybody who's a Puritan about whether or not you should be sticking to the same palette per screen, that doesn't come from me. But no,
Mhm.
I like the idea of exploring. It can be really rewarding to explore different takes on limitations. And that's what people say is like the main attraction of constraints in general is that they encourage you to try different approaches and different things. And yeah, having ideas that lead you in unexpected directions is the reward of embracing that stuff, I think.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I have no idea if I have stuff. I'm not paying attention to our joint. Oh yeah, I'm loaded. Doop 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 doop. Like these little owls here on the background, watching you as you do your stuff.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it fits with the lore. The original idea is, well, the current idea is that the giant owl in the library is sort of a, it's a creepy, not really who knows what its deal is, one of a kind sort of thing.
Yeah.
So having other owls is a bit odd, but you know they can just be normal owls, chilling.
It's their owl god. It's fine.
Yeah, that's true. I, I'm always caught off when you do that because I'm watching the stream and it's got a 5 second delay and you're just like
Yep.
sitting next to a waterfall and then I'm like, huh? What's happening?
I can't help it. Every time I feel very motivated to go. Wait, had I gotten everything on the last screen?
I was going to quickly mention
Yes.
if the library becomes a bit bigger, I think you might have to be able to hold more than 3 requests at one time.
Hmm.
Um, I want to make it so you're going between the library and your house or the overworlds pretty regularly. So it feels like you do a quick dive in, you find some information out, and get out. You tell the people what you found, and you come back in again.
Yeah.
Originally, that idea was that you're looking at the books, so you discover what rune is missing, and then you memorize it. And so you can't remember much more than 3 runes. Otherwise, you're just going to start forgetting. Like, how can you remember like 20 different pieces of information?
Yeah.
Um,
You're only small thief.
yeah, exactly. He's got like a 1 pixel brain.
Uh-oh. Uh. Yeah. Okay. All right. I might be in trouble. I am very in trouble.
No, dead end, dead end. Ooh, he's distracted by the candle.
Whoa, he's moving. No. That was fun. All right.
Oh, you got. Oh, cool, nice. You get away.
I love the tension that gets built there. Is there anything that you've done sort of consciously to try and maximize or tune the type of tension that players will be being exposed to?
Yeah. So the current library layout is it's very minimal. You can't go through a few screens. There's a few puzzles, but it's going to be fully reworked.
Where is this book?
One of the things that's going to happen is there'll be long stretches where you won't be able to find a teleporter out for a long time.
Right.
So you're either going to have to run through it really quickly, or you're going to have to use some of the hiding mechanics because you're guaranteed that the owl's going to find you
Oh,
in
that's
the
something
middle
that
of
I haven't
this
done yet.
puzzle.
How do we hide? Is that C?
It's C, and we talked about this a bit earlier, yesterday, but there's a lot of C mechanics now.
Yeah.
You can't once the screen goes red, you can't open books anymore, so you should be able to hide between the colored books.
Right.
Um,
So you can more or
if
less
you go
only
near
do
that
that
candle, you should be able to.
when you
You should be able to hide behind the
There we go.
candle.
Yeah, I hid yesterday, I think before the owl came. I don't know if that's even possible, but I thought I did. And so I spent ages trying to work out how to do stuff. He's looking
Yep.
around. Maybe we're safe, maybe we're not.
I don't think it's safe. This is something I need to work on, but there are very limited places. Oh, hang on, he's flown away.
Yeah.
Oh, you actually might get away with this.
Yep.
Balancing around on a level with very few hiding spots. How do you actually escape the owl? Because at the moment it's very unlikely that you escape. So well done. But
That
this is
was
something I need to work through.
that was good. That was good. So, Fractal Mind Mike has just asked whether or not there are risks in the library, and I think we've just seen we've just seen one of them. Um, the main one is the owl. Are there other things that you're considering adding? There are a few things where the owl risk can be elevated by some of your actions, which I think is kind of
Yeah, yeah.
interesting.
So
Are you
if you
considering
have a
adding
lot
other
of
hazards though?
oh, I started thinking about spikes,
Oh,
but then I started thinking about Spelunky, and then I thought, am I just recreating Spelunky at this point? Like single like Spelunky's got that really good thing where it's like it's all randomly generated and like you have very limited health. You
yeah.
you hit the spikes and you're like, okay, well that's the end of my run. And mine's very similar. Like I think if I had spikes, it's something that you just you don't recover from the spikes. And
Is fall damage something that you've considered? Because I know that falling too far is already has some consequences, and I'm curious about how you're weighing up what the impact of that sort of stuff should be.
yeah, I think I think you should be able to fall from top to bottom, and that's okay. Yeah, I don't think there'll be fall damage. Yeah, I really think it's mostly just going to be about the owl and the puzzles. So um there'll be puzzles you have to work through. Apart from that, I had the vague thought about spikes, but then I thought, like I said before, I felt like maybe spikes were a bit too generic. You know, like a lot of games use spikes,
Hmm.
but I'm struggling to think of original ideas. Maybe I do fall back to the spikes.
I mean, it's hard, right? But I guess if this were my game and I was thinking about that, I would probably be thinking about what resonates with the concept of a library. Not so many libraries have spikes in them. Um, but I guess you can kind of flavor spikes as crumbled, smashed bookshelves that are spiky that you could fall on,
True.
as a way of trying to flavor or theme things that feel like they fit within that environment or context. But then again, I feel like this is not your everyday, ordinary library, so maybe that's not necessarily something to be too precious about.
Yeah, something else comes to mind is maybe like tripwires that alert the owl. So it's like if you set them off, you've
Hmm.
got a guaranteed owl encounter.
Hmm.
Or so one of the things you can do in this game is you can press the pause, use the pause menu, and then use the give up option, which just is basically the start again as a new thief.
Yeah.
What about inescapable pits? You jump into a pit and you're like, huh, I can't do anything.
Well, you
Um,
can't get your body back then.
exactly. It's going to be
Oh, that's very.
extremely. Just don't fall in the pits. It's
That
easy.
that
Just don't
happened
fall
to
in them.
me, and I was very sad.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, that's right. And then I said I need to fix that. That's not very fun at
Yeah,
all.
you've been
Um,
taking the right approach then as a designer. Like if there's a problem, the way that you fix it is to make it a feature.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I'll think about other dangers, but really, I guess the focus is it's you versus the owl.
Yeah, I think that's something that makes sense to keep.
But I like the idea that the library isn't like the library's a dangerous place. There are hazards in the library. That
Yeah.
can easily be an answer.
Um, I do like the idea of like potentially dangerous or crumbling bookshelves that standing on may not be in your best interests.
Okay. Bookshelves.
Why can I not see this? There it is. Oh no, mistakes. What was back this way? Oh yeah, we're not going that way. Actually, no, we are going that way. I know that swapping between rooms fixes or advances the timer. Excuse me.
Oh, yeah. This is why lighting the candles is a good idea. It gives you some exit
That
symbols.
was wonderful. I loved that moment.
Yeah, wow. I'm very happy that all your owl experiences have all been really exciting and not you getting eaten.
That's alright. Did I get eaten yesterday by accident? I think I did.
Yeah,
I got
yeah.
really cocky and I was like, yeah, I got this. I'm safe. And then, oh no, I'm not. um, had you thought about, because you said that you sort of heal up on your own. Um, over time, and that was something that made me think a little bit about um, the whole. Um, that was what it was, having that thought that prompted me to think about what happens if you eat at home. Have you thought at all about the idea of allowing you to sort of go home to heal up?
No, it's a good idea though. The health system's gone through a lot.
Yeah.
Originally, you had sort of lives. So down in the bottom right with the strawberries, they you had little thieves, and there were like three of them, and they were your health. So if you got caught by an owl once, well, it was very standard health system. So if
Right.
you get hit by the owl, you lose a life. You get hit by another owl, lose another life until you die. And then more recently, it's become this system that if you get then it became okay, the owl has to be dangerous. You need to avoid this owl at all costs, and therefore the owl is going to be insta death. Uh, and and I like the idea that it's sort of like, okay, you messed up, the owl got to you, game over.
Yep.
But then I thought maybe it's a little bit too harsh.
I like that.
So I had
I like that it feels like it's a death sentence when the owl catches you, but you also feel like there's the slightest chance that you might sneak
yeah,
through.
yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to have. And yeah, so the first time you catch, you start limping a little bit. Second time, and he kind of tosses you away, and there's your
Yeah.
slight chance to maybe escape. But you're limping now. And then the second time he throws you away, you can't jump, and you're basically crawling, and you're basically there's no way of getting away. But maybe, just maybe,
I
you
haven't
can
tried
crawl into
hiding at that point.
books.
Like normally I'm too panicking and trying to run to an exit. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, if you can hide in that state, then maybe. But I don't know. The owl knows where you are.
When he throws you, the he he catches you. He knows exactly where you are. He's with you. When he throws you and does that like cacaw, it's not what owls do. Cacaw.
Yeah,
Um,
he loses you.
that's your moment where he's going, haha, I'm so good, looking up into the sky.
Yep.
He doesn't know where he's thrown you, and
Right.
so
Okay.
that's your moment to hide.
I don't know if I've got everything back here. Let's go and backtrack a bit. Okay, so I've got this one. I don't know if I've been through that door. I don't think I have. There's stuff to find here.
Yeah, so it turned into insta death for the owl, and then it turned into that three health system. Um, and it was sort of like, oh, if you manage to crawl away and hide, the owl leaves. You kind of get out of your hiding spot. You recover and you can continue doing the library. But I hadn't thought that maybe you really do have to crawl back to your house to like, sleep it off.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether that's necessarily a good idea, but it would make the consequences of getting caught last longer than the immediacy of the encounter.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't even know where that is. Is that that's back off to the right of where I was, I think. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just playing the game now.
I'm not complaining.
I uh I just really like what this game is doing.
You'll still be able to like these purple books you're finding now. I reckon there's going to be some glitchy looking squares in your basement now that you've
Oh
collected the.
yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
hadn't even thought about that. That's an interesting thought.
what else was I going to say?
You want to talk about, oh,
Yeah,
sorry, if you've got a thought, go with that.
no, I'm struggling to formulate it. You go.
I was going to say, did you want to talk a little bit about the tools that you've used to make this game?
Oh, sure. Well, it's written in C sharp.
Hmm.
So I was using Microsoft Visual Studio for the first couple of years. I moved to Linux, and now I'm using IntelliJ Rider,
Hmm.
which is really nice. I really like it.
So how
Um,
long have you been using Linux for?
since just a bit over a year.
Okay. And that's your
So
primary desktop operating system at the moment?
yeah. So I've always had Windows growing up, and I had a PC at home. And about a year ago is when I started doing this road trip around Australia. Um, and I bought myself a laptop, and I thought, okay, let's make things hard for myself. Let's swap to this laptop, but also only put Linux on it. So like yeah, that's the moment where I swapped to Linux, and yeah, a year later, it's basically all like it's fine. Like
Yeah.
I've basically gotten used to it by this point.
There's an acclimation period for sure. Um, have you found it? What do you feel were the biggest friction points with sort of coming to terms with that being a normal or a new having a new normal to adjust to?
I was really upset that I couldn't get Photoshop working
Oh,
on
interesting.
Linux. I went through this down this whole trail of trying to get Adobe Photoshop CS6 working via Wine, and the Wacom tablet that I have for drawing just couldn't. It just through Wine, it was just hopeless. I'm just like, oh, this is terrible. I
Oh,
wanted to
okay.
use my tablet for everything.
So Photoshop was working, but getting it to talk to your
Well,
tablet was difficult.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's it. And it looks
gotcha.
super ugly because it was Windows in Linux.
Yeah, yeah, it
Uh,
does
and
not
then
look super
you
great.
told me about Krita, which is
Yeah,
basically Photoshop but Linux. And and then I discovered that Linux actually has really, really, really good Wacom tablet support.
yeah,
And
yeah. I was
my
gonna say
problem
when
with
you said that you had Wacom problems, I was like, wait, really?
yeah,
But then you said in wine, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes a bit more sense.
yeah. And so and like even you go into the settings and you go into the settings for your tablet and it just shows you a picture of your tablet. It's like, how does it know that? Yeah, it's very impressive. I'm really, really happy with the support for Wacom. So it turned from the most limiting thing to as soon as I stopped trying to struggle against Linux and actually use the built-in application, it was fine.
I feel like that might mirror a lot of people's experiences. Is that a lot of, and not just for Linux and not just for free software tools, but just new and different stuff in general, is that trying to use a new thing as though it's the old thing that you're familiar with often doesn't lead to positive experiences in the same way that embracing the new thing for what it explicitly is can do.
Yeah. It's a bit like going into a new uh, piece of software and then changing all of the keyboard shortcuts to be the old one, and then
Yeah,
yeah.
I switched to so when I switched to using Linux was like 2003, 2004, something like that. And I had been using Photoshop for a long time, and part of it was like part of my drive to move away um from the stuff that I was using was like I didn't really feel like Photoshop was worth the the cost that Adobe was asking for it, and I'm sort of like, well, if it's not worth paying for, it's not worth pirating, right? Like, I'll just find
Mm,
something else to use, and that kind of led me towards discovering um, a lot of free software tools, and it was um, very difficult, particularly with the GIMP, because all of its default shortcuts are the opposite of what happens in Photoshop. Like that has all the same shortcuts, but they do something different. Um,
yeah, right.
and it's like Control A or Shift Control A, I think, is deselect all in GIMP, but Control D is deselect all in Photoshop, and Control D is duplicate
Yeah.
image in GIMP, and it's like this. It's an awful, horrendous path to go. And I know I had the option of using GIMP Shop, which is a plugin that just maps all the GIMP shortcuts to Photoshop. But at the
Oh,
time, I was like, no, I actually want to invest the time to learn the new thing, and it cost me a lot of productivity for a while. But once I'd gotten the hang of the tool, I don't. I feel like I'm a better artist in general now that I'm not using Photoshop filters as a crutch for everything that I do, which I was back in that at that point in time.
I like Critic because it has all the Photoshop filters in it.
I
No,
keep wanting
but
to find time to switch to Krita, but it's one of those things where if I don't have the time to give it that level of embracing being a noob again and stuff, like it's while I'm in the middle of a project is the wrong time to do that. And as I said, my door is ringing. I'll be back in a second.
oh,
Right. I am terribly sorry about that. My initial plan. I knew that was coming. My initial plan was to ask you a question and then step away and let you answer it, but instead I failed. Um,
all good.
yeah. I do a lot of stuff in Inkscape as well, Fractal Mind Mike, and use Blender for stuff as well. And yeah, it's just like there's a lot of powerful tools out there, and I think I think it's correct to say that they are all these tools have never been better, but I think that that's also been true for their entire existence. It's I feel like, and this is like just a general thought on free software projects in general, is that they are driven by the needs of the people who are working on them and the people who use them, rather than driven by the needs of a company that needs to employ people in general. You know, so if Adobe needs to sell a new version of Photoshop in order to keep being Adobe, then they'll there's a lot more incentive to do gratuitous stuff that isn't focused on giving people stuff that's useful to them. Whereas generally with free software projects, what happens is someone wants a feature, someone goes and makes it, and then contributes that to the project, and that is there now to use for everyone. And like it means that a lot of stuff that people who aren't motivated to contribute, or that isn't exciting to people who have the skills to contribute, often gets overlooked. But it does end up leading towards stuff that is just productivity focused in a way that's very difficult to manage in other types of contexts, I think.
Yeah,
That's
that's
been my
definitely true.
perspective.
One of the things I really like in Critter, this is sort of an aside, but
Yeah, yeah.
so intuitive. So being able to move the canvas around when you hold down space, you turn into pan mode. You hold down Alt and space, you turn into rotate mode, and
Mm-hmm.
that was just so nice. I was immediately impressed. So I think that won me over. I was like, oh, I want to rotate. What if I press this button? Oh, that was it. Like, I don't know who put that feature in, but they're obviously on the same page as me.
Yeah, I assume Photoshop has canvas rotation these days as well. I have
Yeah,
no idea what
but
the
you got to
shortcuts would
press
be.
R and then
Oh,
you can
jeez.
click and drag.
Yeah, that's a
Oh,
pain in the
such a
backside.
yeah, wasted my time.
Yeah. Yeah, both Inkscape and GIMP have canvas rotation as well. The thing that kind of bugs me though is that it's slightly different. I want to say it's control middle click and drag in one of them and shift middle click and drag in the other, but like shift, middle, click, and drag is pan in one of them, and so I keep meaning to pan, but I rotate, and that it's a little bit frustrating. But
Yeah, yeah,
that happens. I guess that's one advantage of the pairing of Illustrator and Photoshop is that Adobe being one company has a lot of interop uh, focus that's more difficult to maintain between independent free software projects. Like no one at Inkscape
yeah,
is
yeah,
really going to say, "Hey, we need to change all of our shortcuts to match the GIMP or Krita or whatever." Um,
yeah. That's true.
but then there have been initiatives like the MyPaint engine, which Krita has support for, if I remember correctly. MyPaint's another painting tool that has like a very elaborate um, paint simulation engine, and you can define and create brushes that have very explicit and dynamic behaviors about them. And there was this point where I don't know why it happened, but around the same time, a whole bunch of free software painting tools implemented support for the MyPaint brush engine. Um, and that's pretty neat to see that kind of interop. Yeah,
Yeah, I wonder if it was the people at my paint kind of reached out and said, like who added the all the interop? Was it the original team
I think it might
trying
have
to
been independent people within each project, but I also have
yeah,
some vague
nice.
recollection of it being driven by Google Summer of Code projects. So it may have been an
Oh,
initiative tied
okay.
into that. I'm not really sure. I
Yeah,
should look it
yeah.
up because like it's interesting. um,
Yeah, like so yeah, it would have been really interesting if it was just a complete coincidence. Everyone went, wow, this is really cool separately and yeah.
it is cool though. I never use it because it's just too powerful for me to to make use of. Like I'm comfortable just using default brushes, and I it's very rare that I go off and make or try and find a particular brush to do painting with.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, I'm just not the audience for it. But when I look at it, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Like you can, um, yeah, like all the example brushes that I can think of that are really impressive are like watercolor things that bleed like watercolor does over time,
yeah.
and pool and stuff, which is pretty
I
neat.
think if it's for me, if it's getting so close to reality, maybe you may as well just use real watercolors.
Well, the
Like
the
it is
main
cheaper, it's more convenient.
yeah, I was gonna say the main reason that I do all of my painting and like I do a bit of sculpting in Blender these days, and um, I've really enjoyed being able to sculpt again because I can't afford to buy clay all the time. I don't have a big enough
Yeah,
house
yeah.
that I can dedicate a space to getting filthy and messy and covered in clay all the time. Like, yeah, it is nice to have
Mm,
tools. Like, I keep a pair of sketchbooks right next to me on my desk and take them with me whenever I go far enough to need a backpack. I like using pencils. I like using paper. I like all that stuff. But I also very conscious of not having the money to constantly buy consumables.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so the demo says that I've gotten to the end here and that there are 5 purple books that we can find, and progress will be tracked in the basement. But as we mentioned before, um, that's that's being phased out and replaced with these sort of paper scraps. Oh no! I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
activated the thing instead of.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Uh, I'm safe. I'm.
Oh, oh,
Oh, I
you did
could
it
have gone through
again.
that door.
No. At least you're. Oh no, you're out of the
Yeah, I'm
level.
dead. I'm gone.
Oh, oh.
It was funny. Yesterday when we were talking, you told me that I could press O to get rid of the owl, and so I got rid of the owl after it had
Even
after it had killed me.
yeah.
So we're back, and now we're a different dude. Is the palette that it goes through, is the next thief always the same color? As
Yes.
I would maybe suggest picking some more vivid colors for the second thief, because it's still like my impression is immediately, oh, I'm a ghost now because I'm pale.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, okay.
It's fine. We've got this. We can.
We had a suggestion as well, like change the shape of the thief a little bit, make him a bit taller
Oh
or
yeah,
shorter.
yeah, yeah,
And that might help too.
yeah, for sure. Give him an eye patch.
I think sadly you're now locked out of your vault
Yeah, my
forever.
body is stuck over there. I don't think I can get over there again. I don't think.
Over the
Okay.
big wall. Oh, you know what you could do?
I could
You
let
could
the
get
owl
onto
catch
the
me.
next screen. Yeah, let the owl catch you, then press O to remove the owl, and then summon him again once your health has regenerated to get back over the wall.
Okay. Uh,
But at this point, that's not really. I don't think that's planned features for the game.
I think the only thing that I've lost is the glyph that I was carrying, right? And possibly some money.
Yeah, and you can't access the vault anymore because of the key.
Oh, the key, right? Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah,
small
yeah.
key.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the downside of we're talking about bottomless pits as potential traps. Um, yeah, that's the downside there is the key.
Yeah, yeah.
Have I got the right book open?
Um,
Yeah, it's the right book.
so
Oh,
you can
I'm
actually
looking for the
use
book
those.
title. I'm like, of course I'm not going to find the book title.
You can actually use the Z's and the T's. So if you go to the each Z represents a page. So if you go to the fourth last page, that's going to be where the text
It
is.
feels like cheating though. I've been very consciously not
No,
looking at it the
God.
whole time. um, we talked a little bit about tools. There was a question from Fractal Mind Mike earlier about whether the backgrounds have been created, and I wasn't sure if that was specifically talking about the environments or the sorry the backgrounds or the gosh, words are going to come out of my mouth eventually. I wasn't sure if that was talking about the backgrounds or the level layouts, but you're very welcome
Yeah.
to talk about either.
So the background at the moment is basically just the bricks, and that's just generated.
Yeah.
That generated the texture. Uh, then the next step is it will pick some random bricks to turn into holes that the eyes are looking out of.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but that's it for the background. I wanted to do more with making the background look a bit more. Look at that, nice hair.
Yeah, I was just
Yeah,
looking at that. I was like, oh man,
yeah,
rad purple hair.
yeah. Okay, that explains. I changed the palette because I thought, oh, this color isn't used. I'll mark it as purple for future reuse.
This comes back
So
to that
just
thing of uh oh, these reset.
oh, you might did that.
Well, this is the first
Interesting.
one, right? No, it's not the first one. This is a different one. All right, ignore me.
Okay, cool. If it's a different one, then great. We're all good. Um, oh, what was I saying? The backgrounds, yeah, the backgrounds just sort of generate like that,
Yeah.
and the actual level layouts. For the original 10-day jam, that was completely randomly generated. You had control of over how many shelves appeared. You could say, I want to randomly generate a screen that has 2 shelves and 3 book requests, and then it would just do the rest. And over time, that's become more and more, or less and less random, and more, curated. Like you actually build the levels. You
Yeah.
choose the lengths of the shelves. You choose exactly where the books appear. You choose where the ladders appear. Um, yeah, and then there's that basic layout gets done, and then there's a shader that just converts it all into, you know, dark green, light green.
I might bring up the level editor if you feel
Oh, yeah.
motivated to talk about that.
Oh, I hope you do, because there's a new feature in there
All right,
that
awesome. All right.
feature request
I
the
will finish assembling this jigsaw puzzle. We'll pretend that I earned all of these pieces with
yeah, yeah.
with the
Good
playing that
place
I've
for the
been
game.
doing. I want that one. And I have to like turn it the right way. Funny that.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, you were talking yesterday about having left and right um, rotation, and
Yeah.
my thought and experience, just coming from Bone Sweeper, where that I've had similar kind of this. I should have thought about this. I should have said this game has recently gotten some new features that have some vague alignment with what I'm doing in Bone Sweeper, but I feel like
Oh
this kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
matches with the skeleton stuff a tiny bit.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
I only use one
What?
rotation direction. I never use. I'd rather press rotate clockwise 3 times than press rotate counterclockwise.
That's
I have found as a player.
yeah. I have done that as well. There was a game that I'd been working on about a year ago that it was sort of a Tetris based thing where blocks were falling down the screen and you could move them left, move them right, or rotate.
Hmm.
And I just had a single rotate direction,
Yeah.
which I won't go into. I'm trying to clear my head of these. It's like a cool technical feature that's not relevant to what I'm trying to portray. Uh, anyway, I think I agree with you, but the reason why there's left and right, I guess,
I think you'll
because
probably
I've
have players who
only
intuitively want to go one direction and other players who want to intuitively go in the other direction.
that's true. And with a controller, I can map left and right to the shoulder pads of the controller. So
Yeah.
I think that'll feel more intuitive if they're both available. Um,
Is that comfortable? I find those deeply uncomfortable to press.
I
There's a
mean,
game I've played that uses that as like something that you hold down while as like your fire button while you run around as like a shmup. And I was like,
yeah,
I can't do that. That kills my hands.
yeah. I guess. Well, the only not much of a gamer, not much of a game developer. The only console I ever owned growing up was a Game Boy Advance, and yeah, I guess I've always been used to having the shoulder pads. Like, well, what am I talking about? I think most controllers have had the shoulder pads, haven't they? I don't find them too uncomfortable, but I find using a controller in general really uncomfortable.
Yeah,
My hands will start
same
to
here.
hurt. Yeah,
Even more so now that I've got like a repetitive strain injury. It's like I was playtesting someone's game and I played like 40 minutes or something, and then I had to rest my hands for like 2 days. Couldn't do any work. couldn't do any housework. Couldn't do anything. I was like,
I
oh
guess.
yeah, I way
Yeah,
overdid that.
I guess the other thing with having only one rotate direction, for me, I think it's less of a cognitive load because it's like I want to the piece
Yeah,
is in one of four positions and I want to move it to one of four positions. I only need to remember four things: either press it once, twice, 3 times,
yeah.
three things. But as soon as you can rotate in both directions, it's
There are
like,
two
do I
options
want
to
to
get
rotate
there.
right once
Yeah,
or left twice or 3 times? And then, yeah, it just creates too many options.
yeah. Although there is no time pressure on these particular puzzles in the game, so there's less downside to that, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, even I don't know if you've seen it. There's a puzzle mode, I call it, in Bone Sweeper at the moment, where you can like just use the mouse to effectively do the same kind of puzzle interactions that you're doing here in the Owl, the Thief, and the Strawberries, where the excuse me the fossil chunk attaches to the mouse cursor, or you can move it around with the cursor keys at your own pace, and place it wherever you want to try and place it. Um, and I find that even with that, I use right click to rotate, and I only have one rotate button, and find that fairly comfortable.
One thing, I'm going to go back to my technical thing I was trying to avoid saying,
Yeah, yeah.
but with Tetris game that I'd been building, I had a replay system in there, so the replay system recorded the player input and the delay between each input, and that was how the replay file was laid out. And it felt really neat because I realized that because the only things a player can do is move left, right, move the piece down one, or rotate. They only had a total of 4 actions, and so I could store that in what, 2 bits?
Right.
So 2 bits to store all the user input, and then the other 6 bits of a byte was the timing information. And because a piece would always move down after a maximum of 1 second, it meant that the maximum value of 5 bits would be equal 1 second, and the minimum value of 5 bits would be 0 seconds.
That's a
And
fair bit of
that,
resolution.
yeah, yeah. So it meant that the replay, like, you were guaranteed to have a user action every 1 second because you just counted a piece moving down after 1 second as
Yeah.
part of the user input.
Yep.
And so it was 1 byte per user action, and it felt really cool.
Yeah, that's neat. Did you do replays? Because I feel like that, like, the next logical step there would be just, well, just keep all of those, play them all back.
Yeah, that was the replay system. So you could
Yeah.
save all that file and then just relaunch the game with the replay file, and yeah, it all worked.
That's fun.
I got really far with that game actually. I should show it at some point, but it was a clone of an old game I used to play called Connectress, which was
Connectress.
like, yeah, it was a combination of Tetris and, you know, that pipe building game where you need to like
Yeah,
you need to place pieces to create a
right.
fully connected pipe system. But the Tetris aspect is that those pieces fall down one at a time.
Okay.
And you need to, yeah, it was fun.
So it's not necessarily about filling out lines,
Mines.
because like Tetris is all about making lines that are like
Oh
filling out
no.
the entire play space.
No, it was the Tetris part was just get one piece at a time. You rotate them and they fall towards the bottom.
Your interface into the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
So see here that we have a scoreboard thing. I don't know if I saw this before. And I don't know if I've commented on it before, but let's pretend I haven't. Tell us about what's going on here.
Oh yeah, this is old and needs a big rework at some point. So this is a full list of every of completely randomly generated libraries. So I talked about how originally the game was purely randomly generated, and now it's all sort of, you create the levels, you design the levels. So the main game is completely designed, but the random generation is still in there. So what I've got is, if you choose a seed and just pick a random generation value and then enter it, you'll create a fully random library.
Or it'll
oh, it didn't work. No. Okay, well, it will do absolutely nothing.
Given key 0 was not present in the dictionary. Alright, I can pass you that later if you want to look into it, but if it's something that you're revamping, it's not super important.
Yeah, it seems like it'll be easy to reproduce. But yeah, anyway,
hang on, here's a bug. I slept as the person with the purple hair, right? It's not loaded back in my my current character. Yeah, Pipe Dream is the name of the sort of original game that did that pipe building stuff, I think. Or at least the one that popularized it. I don't know whether it's where the concept came from. But yeah, so the are you still thinking of having some kind of seeded endless options?
Yeah, this will still be in here. This is my, like, oh, if the game was hugely successful, then this is the thing that I'd be excited about in terms of that, because there's a server that sits behind this that will actually keep track of the highest scores. So, you know, how much money. There used to be a score system. Yeah, a lot of it needs to be reworked. But the basic idea is that if you were to play one of these random seeds and set a high score on it, then everybody who plays the game and scrolls through this leaderboard thing will see your score as the best score. So it's like because, you know, that score gets sent to a server, and then everyone who plays the game gets given those scores. And so it's sort of like, as people as more and more people play the game, more and more of these blank seeds become
Get filled out.
listed high scores for
Yeah.
the random libraries. Yeah.
I'm like, in general, very skeptical of the value of leaderboards as a concept, but I kind of like the idea of distributing it out across this vast possibility space that you're inviting player communities to engage with the exploration of. Like, I think that's doing
like,
something interesting.
Yeah, because it doesn't list who got the highest score, it just shows
Oh,
in the
okay.
entire world the best score is this. And so
That's interesting.
you might scroll through a page and go, oh, why is this level got such a low score? And you can try to bump that number up for everyone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I actually like that a lot better. Because, like, most leaderboards are all about. It's kind of like a pissing competition, I guess. But it only matters to the top 10 people. Everyone else is just nothing. Like, it doesn't.
Yeah.
The difference between 1005 and 1006 doesn't mean as much as the difference between number 2 and number 3, right? And so, yeah, like the vast majority of people who engage with the leaderboard are not getting the maximum amount of resonance out of their experience of playing, and they're generally surrounded by people that they have no social context for, so there's no reason to care about who's next to you. Whereas friends only leaderboards at least sort of tell you something. The other thing that I kind of feel a bit weird about is that and something that I like what you're talking about here, but like in a leaderboard or a high score board or whatever, even if it's just local to the machine, one day you will have the best, most luckiest run of your life, and you have peaked and you will never be able to set something higher again. Is that interesting? Does that create opportunities to have new experiences? I don't, like, it doesn't, right? Like, whereas I think that this idea of not showing names and just saying, like, this is the best that we know of for this particular library, I think that is a more interesting and evocative thing, because it's not necessarily a challenge to beat it. I feel like the way that would be presented is more of a challenge to meet it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Which I really like the idea of. That's quite exciting to me.
Yeah.
As someone who's complained and bitched and moaned about leaderboards and has a lot of strong opinions about what is interesting and what is not interesting about them, this is something that I've never really thought about, treating high scores as a par rather than something that needs to be beaten in order to feel good about.
Yeah,
I love that.
I think part of the reason I'm excited is that it'd be so good if enough people played this game that this thing could fill out. I think it'd be really exciting to just sit there and watch it like light up, because when you set a score, it goes from grey to a bright color with the score on it. And I think that could be just really satisfying. It feels it's a bit of a stretch, but we talk about ARG games, like alternate reality games, where a whole community comes together to try to solve that game. It kind of feels like that. It feels like a community effort.
I definitely love that aspect of like saying, here's this giant possibility space that you're inviting the community to fill out and put a check marker next to each one. You could, and I was thinking about this even before you said anything about ARGs, but you could, these are all words, right? They can all potentially have meaning. You could hide some things in particular libraries that have particular words attached to them, and expose opportunities for that kind of broad community puzzle solving, if you wanted.
I think it's a really interesting idea, sure.
Yeah, like the idea of the library that says, what does that say? That says Kez, we will assume. That library happens to have something in it that is unique to that particular, because like they're all generated, so they're all going to be tied to a specific key, but you could add some things that are like, if it is this particular seed, put this in this particular room, and have that
Yeah.
be like the name of another library within this thing, and players could follow the path um, to reveal something. I don't know what. Um, had we talked about combination locks before using these glyphs?
No, combination locks with glyphs. Hmm.
Because that would allow you to make stuff that is dependent upon discovering glyphs.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point.
But I feel like if
I
you were going to do something like that whole find a clue in a particular library that's relevant to another library, that a combination lock would probably be a nice way of, I guess it could still be brute forced, but a nice way of allowing that to happen.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Something else came to mind. Oh, I was going to say that it, I guess part of the inspiration for this sort of leaderboards goes all the way back to Neopets. I don't know if you ever played Neopets.
No, no, that's something I didn't get exposed to at all.
Yeah. But they used to have these big community events, and one comes to mind. It was like a Halloween event, and a little bit morbid looking back at it now, but it was like a grave digging thing that they needed to find a particular. They were trying to make a potion, and they needed a. Sorry, I'm just getting a call.
You're right.
Um, there's this huge, expansive graveyard that no one single person could explore, but between you know thousands and thousands of people all exploring this graveyard at once, um, this it was like a graveyard with like 10 million graves in it, and one of the graves had the item that the community needed to progress the plot, and you needed everybody in the community constantly searching, and after like a day, finally the one person found the correct grave. And I really like that idea that
Yeah.
you kind of not one person, not a single person couldn't do it.
Yeah, well, like asking
Um,
somebody to fill out this entire this entire list of libraries, like that's a long effort. Whereas if you went,
yeah,
because you could, if you were going to do that kind of thing of ask everybody to explore the library to find something, you could, if the game was successful enough and had an audience enough that it felt like it made sense to do that kind of thing. If you wanted to make it feel like an event, you could say, okay, well, you've got a month to do this, and after the end of the month, then um the algorithm, or the, I don't know, whatever salt that you apply to the seed is going to change, and it'll be a different one next month.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that'd be good.
Yeah.
Another thought I had about finding a very particular library that when you go into it references another library and kind of creates a chain. I
Actually,
guess
have you moved your mic away from your mouth a bit?
yes, a little bit. Is this a little bit better?
Yeah, that's a bit better. I just noticed it. I
Okay,
was like, oh, you might
thank
try and
you.
fix that. No, it's all good.
Um, Maybe the downside to having libraries that reference other libraries is that as soon as a single person finds it, that one person can then follow the rest of the trail by themselves.
Yeah. Hmm.
Which might be fine, but yeah, I guess with the ARGs, the thing is group effort. One person finds the step that progresses it, and then you need the group effort to get the next step again.
Yeah, yeah. So if you're going to take like the combination lock for example, whatever is inside the combination lock doesn't necessarily tell you what the next thing is. It gives you like another piece of the puzzle, and
Yeah, yeah,
and then once you've got all the pieces, then you can independently put them together.
yeah, something like that.
Or you would need to share knowledge to be able to put them together.
Yep.
Yeah, you can do that kind of gating. I think that kind of makes sense. So one other thing I wanted to look at before we wrapped up was were the editor tools. Would you like to guide me through this so that I'm giving a good presentation of what happens here?
I might have to wing it a bit because the stream delay might be
That's right.
might
Do
throw
we
me
want to
off.
start
But
with the
yeah,
campaign editor? I think.
maybe go with the room editor
Okay. Yeah.
first. Oh, yeah, let's go room editor.
Oh. All right. We got another crash here.
Oh,
Um, it's complaining about empty 0001 not being present in rooms 3 or 0.3. Um, let me
that was
just.
the thing we tried to fix yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I created a new profile, like I completely blew away the old stuff. So there shouldn't be anything old hanging around in here. If I just, do I have anything from 0.2? No, I don't have an empty 000 from point 2. Well, hang on, can we go into the campaign editor and remove that? Although I guess that will probably crash as
I
well.
think it'll also crash. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, you know that empty.rm I sent you in Discord?
You sent me a
Maybe try.
tutorial.
Oh, okay. I'll give you an empty one then.
Yeah.
That might fix it.
Yeah, because you sent me the tutorial so that I could have the sparklies and map pieces.
Yep, yep. Let's see. I'm going to send you the full list of rooms just to make sure.
Oh, cheers. We'll sit in the chair and eat some porridge. Is it soup or porridge?
I think it's soup.
Like a chicken soup? It looks like a chicken soup color.
Hmm.
Like a creamy sort of.
It is. It's brothy, isn't it?
I really like
Is
the steam coming off the cup there.
I was very proud of my animation skills there.
Yeah, I think it
It
came
did
out
take
very
me
well.
about an hour to produce these, what, 4 frames of animation, 5 frames. So I sent you it's a zip of 2 folders. So if you just replace the 2 folders in your app data, well, in your home
Yep.
directory with those 2 folders, just like
Um,
rename the other ones and yeah.
campaigns and rooms. Okay, yep. I can do this while the game is running, right? Like it seems like it doesn't load these until I bring up the editor.
Yes. Yeah,
Well,
it should be okay
yeah.
actually. You might be able to hotload.
Let's find out.
Yeah.
Room editor, hooray! All right, here we go.
Oh, it worked. Wow.
Are we on a are we on a flying skateboard now?
Yes, we're on a hoverboard.
I love it. I will say it wasn't like an entirely serious suggestion
Yeah.
when I pitched it before. But it's kind of funny. I love it. It's brilliant.
Sorry, I'm just responding to a text message. Just give me 20 seconds. So sorry, you can start with pressing Z and moving around to create shelves. So Z, move Z, and that'll create some shelves with
Yep.
books on it.
So Fractal My Mic, this might answer some of your questions about how things work. Oh, you can put stuff on the ground? Yeah, of course you can put stuff on the ground.
Yeah, yeah, maybe.
I feel like I've come across books on the ground before, maybe. But maybe not.
I don't think I've got any current levels with it. Candles on the ground.
Oh yeah, how do we do candles?
So Z is your do action, and then X is your cancel action, and C is open the menu.
There it is.
And that's where you can choose a bunch of stuff.
So now I can put candles wherever I want.
Yep. Or they'll snap to valid positions.
Oh, that's handy. I don't know if it was doing that before. I feel like I might have been putting candles in midair when we were playing
There's
with
an
the
option
editors
to
before.
disable it.
Oh, okay.
There's a snap option. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I guess
One of
you
these,
can
I
make
guess.
it ladders as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah, let's put some ladders
It's,
in.
it's that far right in the middle is the thing to disable the
Right.
shelf snap.
That looks good. What else can we put in
Yeah,
here? We
and then,
put in some cobwebs.
yeah, the cobweb, you're gonna have to, I think you select cobweb and then you need to make 4 point selections, so kind of Z, 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 and it will create it between those 4 points.
I love how the cobwebs come out. Like they're sort of this low fidelity um, thing, but I think they look great.
Yeah, I think if you create a square without, if you create a rectangle without a crossover, then I think they look a little bit nicer. But yeah, and there's some limitations. Like if the
Yeah.
cobweb doesn't look great, you go, okay, I'll try again.
So if you do have a crossover, you could just rejiggle the points so that
That's true.
they don't.
I'll write that down.
Because yeah, it does look a lot better if you don't.
I guess, yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, well, I know to not cross over the points, so that saves a lot of development effort.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, so if you can also add readable books. So if you open the menu, I think you'll find
Item book.
that one, yeah, the green book. Yep. So
Yeah.
if you select that and then move around the shelves, you should be able to set different colors
Yep.
as you fly past the books.
So I can put a green one here.
And you can press X to change the color of your book that you're placing.
Yeah. I can't change the color of an existing book, can
Oh, you should. If you can't, that's a bug.
I? Looks like no. It's very
Oh,
hard to very hard to stop
there's
on.
a nudge option. Hang on. I'm looking. There's a lot of dodgy controls that'll take you out of the editor. So I don't want to say the wrong thing. But there is a nudge option, so you can move a pixel up, a pixel down, pixel left,
Yeah,
pixel right,
okay.
somewhere. Yeah. So once you've
Yeah, I think I got a bunch of
so
stuff here.
yeah, so once you choose a book, sorry, if you open the menu again, then the icon below the green book, which is like the pages with the dots,
Okay.
that will
Oh, it
set you. Yep.
puts the things in there. Yeah, rad.
Yeah, that will let you set the page, the book contents of any particular book. So if you go over to one and
Ooh.
should highlight and then press Z to enter description mode, this is where you can, for example, create if you made a description which was, for example, you can hold down backspace to clear the
Oh, I
current
can?
description.
Yeah, nice.
Yep. And then you can do, say, P to put pebbles in books. So if you go P space P space P, um, T 0 dash P, you might have to get rid of that 0 dash, otherwise it's going to complain.
I can put numbers in. Okay.
Yeah.
I know.
That's
Invalid throwable identifier. I didn't have a space in there, I guess.
Oh, sorry, I changed this. Yeah, it has to be P1 without a space.
P1.
P1, P1, P1.
Oh, right, because it's like other things now.
Yeah, it used to be that P meant pebble, but now it means throwable. And
Yeah, throwable has a
anyways,
silent P.
yeah. So once you've done that, you can press C again, and there'll be an option to play the level, which will be the icon with the thief on it with the arrows.
This one.
Uh-oh, not that one. The one at the top.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Sorry, thief with arrow wasn't.
Oh, we still have a skateboard. That's kind of fun.
Oh, whoops.
Vroom.
I didn't think of that. Yeah, but now if you open that book, you should be able to see a bunch of pebbles in it.
I think that was this book, right? Hey, I got seeds.
Yeah. Oh, seeds. Whoops, I got the number wrong, but there you go.
I guess pebbles
So
are 0 or something, or strawberries are 0.
something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
0, 1, or 2.
Now I've got seeds. We can expose a new mechanic that we didn't get to see elsewhere.
Yeah, that's true. Which is still hasn't been implemented in any of the design, but maybe eventually. I'm going to change it so that I think this is what I want to do. I'm going to make it so that the seed will land, and then you maybe have either it's like a 5-second window so that you can pick up the seed, because if you put the seed in a place you don't want it to be, you're like, okay, I want to pick that back up and place it
Yeah,
somewhere else.
yeah.
But then I thought, oh, what if it was actually the seeds take a generation to grow? That's a thought. Or maybe they take, maybe
Oh,
you need to find water and water them for them to grow.
I like the idea of like having to find stuff and come back and use use more inventory items to do stuff. That's kind of
Yeah,
fun to
yeah.
me. Um, a generation is tough because like asking a player to remember something
Yeah.
they did could be a long time
Yeah.
between generations.
Yeah, and there's lots of downsides to moving to a new generation, so I don't think it makes
Yeah,
sense to
yeah.
mechanics
I
for
see.
just
Like an interesting thought though.
Hmm. Um.
Does the
Yeah.
if you fall high enough to alert the owl, does the distance beyond that threshold matter?
Uh,
So
what do you mean?
if
Sorry.
I fall from um if I just fall from here, that's enough to trigger the owl alert thing. But if I jumped, would that decrease his timer by more?
There's three levels. Like if the screen doesn't shake and there's no sound, so if you're like jumping up and down on the spot,
Yeah.
nothing will happen. If you fall and you hear a tunk, then the owl gets alerted a little bit, and then if there's a screen shake, the owl gets alerted a little bit more. So there's just three discrete
I didn't realize
possible.
that the that the falling far enough to make a sound but not shake the screen actually alerted him. That's fun.
Yeah, but it's only a little bit. It's like
Yeah,
a little bit.
I'm out of stuff. I assume the owl doesn't come while we're testing.
No, it it has. There have been a lot of bugs that have made it show up, so I wouldn't be surprised if it did. But I fixed it many times. I guess that's the level editor.
Yeah.
There's also, is there anything else interesting in the that you can place in the course?
Let's have a quick look again. What was this thing up here? Request books. So that's where you can explicitly say that this book is going to be a part of what the person on the other end of the phone is going to care about, if I remember right.
Yes, yeah. So when you set page, so first you have to choose where the books go, then you have to change the book, set the book contents so that they physically can have a request page in them, and then the request order is the explicit,
Yeah.
the
And then
books in
there's
order
also
of
doors and
discovery.
exits. Are
Oh
they
yeah,
shrines?
yeah.
Do we call them shrines?
They they're called shrines.
Yeah.
Um, but originally it was a shrine back in the old days. Um, what else is there? Oh, you can put the glimmers in. That's nice.
Okay, don't
Really,
do
that's
random.
smooth. Oh, did that break it?
Yeah, it got
No.
sad. That's fine.
Yeah, that's I don't know why. That was working until recently. So.
We could look at the campaign editor as well
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
if you wanted. So we
this will
can
take a little
see
while to load.
all the levels that we played through earlier in the game. Um,
Yeah.
and I guess yeah, doors are shown here. We didn't really look at how doors work, but the idea is
Hmm.
that you can put doors in. Do you set where a door leads? Is that something that you do here in the campaign editor?
Yeah, campaign editor. So again, you can press C to get some
Get a menu.
tool options, and
Yeah, set
one
door
of these things
connection.
will be set door connection. And it's done in four key presses basically. First you go first four Z's. First one is pick a
Okay.
room with a door in it. Then you move to a second room with a door in it, and that creates the connection.
Yep.
Or if there are two doors in the room, then you go into door selection mode, and you can pick between the two doors in that particular room.
Oh,
Um,
you can just push new rooms
yeah,
in.
it's
I didn't realize
yep,
that.
yep,
That's fun.
yeah. Um, so there's a bunch of nice features in the editors.
Yeah, that's handy. The idea of having like this deep basement.
Yeah, yeah. One thing I was going to add was floors that you can fall through, so you
Yeah.
can actually go to levels lower. Yeah. How
Um.
many rooms are crashes? Um, 256, I think.
You've got a hard limit on that.
Yeah, yeah,
It's that I assume would just be down to the data structure that you're keeping it in.
yeah. Yep, exactly. Yeah, I think it's 256 rooms. Oh, and while I'm reading comments, there's one about C64, Commodore 64, right? I've never played, I've never touched a Commodore 64, so so I can't say I've had any inspiration from there. But growing up, we used to have an Amiga
I was
computer.
gonna say my first computer was an Amiga, and I sort of skipped over the C64, so I have no love or awareness. my my
Yeah,
C64 literacy is zero, but I have a lot of fondness for the Amiga.
yep, yep.
What a powerful tool
Yeah,
that was! Like it did so much stuff.
I think I was a bit too young to really appreciate it, but my dad used to have bring home floppy disks of dodgy games, um,
I
dodgily
mean,
received games.
yeah, yeah.
I remember there was one disc that it had on it the name of the game, and then it said like asterisk asterisk virus exclamation mark, and you had to make sure that if you put the disc in and then played the game, you had to turn off the computer. If you closed the game, you'd get the virus, but if you turned off the computer, then it was completely fine. So we had a few things like that we had to deal with.
It might not explode when we hit 256 rooms. It might only be when you're saving. I don't know what your implementation looks like, but if people are hoping to see the game crash while I'm idly making new rooms here, I don't know if these new rooms are even being made.
I think it will crash. I believe it will
Okay,
crash.
I guess
Um,
we can push it. We
but
had a game called Virus, which was kind of like a alien spaceship dogfighting game, and I feel like that game maybe suffered from people assuming that it was actually a virus.
yeah, that's true. One game that we played a lot was called RoboCod,
Robocod,
and
yeah.
yeah, oh, you've heard of it? Nobody, I've never come across anybody
I
that's
never
ever
got to
even
play
heard
it,
of
but I got to
RoboCod.
see a lot of screenshots of it in like Amiga Computing and Amiga Format magazines.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, that was a really good game. It didn't have saving. I think you had to start the game from the beginning every time you played it.
Oh,
Maybe it
interesting.
was a virus-related restriction.
Yeah, James Pond. 007, I think was like the
Yeah, yeah,
subtitle
yeah.
that it had, right?
RoboCod 2,
Oh, that was
James
Robocod
Bond.
2, wasn't
Yeah,
it? Yeah.
yeah.
I assume it was like a parody of action movies and stuff.
No, well, the one I played, no, it was a really solid standalone game. It was really nice. It was
You're right.
Christmas themed, so I think you were saving penguins. That's it. I think RoboCod actually holds the record for being the very first game to have in-game advertising. So,
Oh.
in what would it be in the UK? They have these penguin chocolates, which are kind of like Tim Tams in Australia, and in RoboCod, the intro sequence is all the penguins are being stolen, being captured by this evil person. And in fact, he might even be called Doctor No or something like that.
Wow.
Anyway, Doctor Snow maybe.
Oh, Dr. Snow,
Um,
yeah, that
yeah,
that tracks.
and he goes, "Oh, you have to save all the penguins before it's too late." And then all the penguins will fall into formation on the screen, and these chocolate bar wrappers go in front of them, and then it goes, "Penguins chocolates, the best chocolate in the
Wow.
whole world," and it's an actual advertisement for penguin
Wow.
chocolate. Yeah, but it was very morbid because I always assumed it meant that
You eat
the
the
guy was
penguins.
stealing the penguins and turning them into these penguin
Yeah.
chocolates.
Wow. That's
Maybe not
almost
want to
like
eat
the
them.
like Pokemon Go where you take all your spare Pokemans and turn them into lollies to feed to your
Yeah,
other
yeah.
Pokemans. It's pretty creepy.
Mm.
I may have spotted a bug, or perhaps it is the manifestation of this hard limit. Um, is that sometimes I am moving through these areas of rooms that I've already created, and I'm hearing a bloop as though I am adding a new room.
Oh, okay. That's oh. All right.
I'm not
Um,
not. I mean, it's not really important because I'm not really doing anything that's particularly important or useful. But
I'd be completely unsurprised that my grid-based code was very dodgy.
it's good, solid
Um,
enough. Let me
I'll put it up.
move around and make stuff. Oh,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
remember adding a room to this. Hmm. I definitely.
Oh,
I mean, this room doesn't have a door, right?
oh. I'll just put down campaign editor dodgy.
It's cool though. Yeah, I'm really excited about a lot of what this game does. I love that it leaves a lot for you to find and discover on your own. I like that even when you know what's going on, like when you know how to play the game, you don't necessarily know how to read the books. There's like a lot of stuff that is left to your imagination. I really like the way that it handles tension and escalates tension, and I feel like the way that tension resolves could maybe do with a little bit of work, but just in general, the way that it builds like some cool ambiance and makes you feel like you've got to be mindful of how you're spending your time. I think it works really well. And yeah, I've loved watching this game grow over the past, I guess, year. Um, yeah, it's been cool, and I've really enjoyed this chat as well. I'm remembering that you said that you want to wrap up by 2 hours, so I'm hastily making sure that I get to say the things that I was intending to say.
Yeah, cool. I went in the process of moving my desk into the light. I didn't plug my laptop in, so I've got about 30 minutes left of battery. So
Oh, good times, good
the
times.
2 hours would be perfect timing.
Yeah, let me also check my other notes here. We talked about tools, we talked about aims and goals. Did we talk about inspirations for this game?
Um, I guess I touched on. Oh, did I?
I
Maybe I
think I think
just
we
had
just
this
sort of talked
concept.
in general about older games not
Yeah.
being heavily tutorialized and kind of having to
Well,
learn what things are and what they mean and what they do on your own.
I briefly mentioned Splunky when we were talking about spikes,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
I think I like I kind of touched on. I'm trying to avoid becoming another game because Spelunky's really good. Like, but sometimes I think, oh, maybe I should just go play Spelunky instead of making this game. Um,
I think this
so
game's doing
I
stuff that Spelunky doesn't do.
yeah, yeah, it's got Spelunky. Yeah, I'd say Spelunky's inspiration, especially like procedural generation, sort
Hmm.
of punishing when you die.
You can see some parallels between the owl and the ghost as well.
Yeah, yeah. Another one that would be Binding of Isaac. That's just for the room layout ideas I'm thinking about in the future.
Hmm. Okay.
Like we talked about having a mini map
Yeah.
bit, and so the player knows where they are in the library, and then showing the library structure.
You were talking
The first
before
game that
about
comes to mind is playing.
being concerned about things feeling samey, and if we were talking about Metroidvanias as inspirations, like um, that whole sort of recontextualizing how you and so changing the way in which you navigate the space as a way of making old spaces and familiar things more interesting, or at least to minimize the amount of stuff that you have to engage with that you've previously engaged with, is potentially a way of addressing that as you allow things to get larger and broader in scope. If you do expose a map, um, then perhaps some fast travel options between doors that you've previously passed through might allow you to
Yeah, yeah.
let players get through a much larger um, library without asking them to engage in things that might become tedious
Yeah, yeah. Even I
or
had thought
jump
about
to
that a
other
little bit with
altars or something.
the shrines.
Shrines,
Yeah,
yeah.
like the shrines. Maybe when you enter one, you pick every time you discover one. Maybe that becomes a really big deal. It's like, wow, I found the new checkpoint, and
Yeah,
it
yeah,
makes sense that you can always jump between them. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that could be cool. And like, if you made it so that you don't get the map until you've done a whole bunch of other stuff, then suddenly, having the map and having the ability to travel, pick which shrine you're going to, suddenly
Oh, yeah.
feels different.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt that thought. It was just something that popped into my mind there while we thought was
Yeah, yeah.
relevant to what
All
we were
good.
talking about before.
yeah, we were talking about inspirations, I guess.
Mm.
Well, when we're talking about Metroid style stuff, I guess Hollow Knight comes to mind. Um,
Another Australian game.
oh, it's really, oh, I didn't even know that.
You didn't? Oh, I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure it is.
good.
Like 99% sure that it is.
Yeah, yeah, nice. I can't even remember the name of the team behind it now. Something to do with cherries, right?
Team Cherry, is it? Is it just
Yeah,
Team Cherry?
okay.
I think it is.
Team Cherry? Team Cherry. See, I know what I'm talking about. Cherry. Yeah, well,
It was
it's
made
just a
by
really
someone
solid game.
named Cheryl.
Yeah. Ah. Yeah, see, that's what I knew exactly what I'm talking
I knew it
about.
started with a CH.
Yeah. Yeah, Holland, that's just a solid game overall. It has
Yeah.
really good atmosphere, it has really good characters.
You have to be mean to bugs.
Uh, you have to be, yeah, but they're evil bugs. It's okay.
Boy. It's like the first thing you do is kill a whole bunch of flies.
Oh, bugs that are just hanging around chilling. That's true.
Yeah, and then the next thing that you kill is their mother, and I'm like, oh, well, that's uplifting.
Well, yeah, but apart from the horrible bug killing part, it's really
No, it
nice.
looks like a really solid game. I just
Yeah.
can't bring myself to play
Oh,
it.
there are some nice good bugs. You can make friends with selective bug
You
friends.
can't even be friends with Hive Knight.
What, Hive Knight? I don't know. Well, okay, I don't know. Anyway,
Hive
it's
Knight's a
fine.
bee guy. He's pretty cool.
Oh, oh, of course. Yeah, 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 yeah. Um, Hollow Knight. What else? There was another game. In terms of old 2D platformers, we would have grown up with Keen, like Commander Keen.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
You have to eat your
and
vegetables.
is
There's
that
apparently
right?
the lyrics to that song.
What, Commander Keen? Oh
Yeah.
no.
So you
Wait,
have
what?
to
I
eat
didn't know
your
there was a.
vegetables.
I've never heard of this story of this song.
Yeah, that's what I found from watching retro DOS streamers, is that people have come across this and have been sharing that deep keen knowledge.
Wow.
Apparently the composer wrote lyrics.
Huh. Um, I'm trying to think of other games, but yeah, nothing's really coming to mind.
Fair enough. Fair enough. It does feel like a lot of it's come from like iterating on things that you've made rather than specifically pursuing things that other games are doing. Like, yeah, there are some core concepts that we can see bits of Spelunky here and there, and some other bits and pieces that you've mentioned. But at least as far as what I've witnessed over the past yearish, it definitely feels like things that you have done have been inspiring and informing what comes next. And like that's game dev, right? Like it's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, I guess the fact that you can go from the library to originally the game was you press play and now you're in the library.
Yeah.
And then it's sort of slowly I've added more and more to this overworld. Originally the idea was, okay, I want to make the main menu look nicer, and that thought is what it eventually turned into this entire overworld area.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of. I'm sure I've played a couple of games where you have that like hub area, and it's just really satisfying to be able to walk around in that calm space. But really,
Yeah.
really, all it is like a glorified main menu selection screen.
Yeah. I mean, Hollow Knight's got that sort of thing going on, where you have like a space that seems pretty calm, and people that you've met kind of tend to gather there, I guess. I've only
Yeah,
watched
yeah.
people stream it, so I don't have any first-hand experiences playing it. Dirtmouth, apparently. Either that or I said something that offended Monkey Nut.
Oh, the first town, yes, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. This is not your first game. You said that it's your first game of this kind of scope and scale that you're considering a commercial release for. Are there any other bits and pieces from your past that you would like to draw attention to or talk about?
Um, yeah, well, I guess. Hmm. So I first started making games in Adobe Flash,
Hmm.
back when that wasn't taboo. um, and one of the first games I made was it was called the Flying Dog Game, and it was based off sort of like I guess side scrollers in general, but specifically there was a Flash game called the Helicopter Game, and it was just a helicopter that kind of went up and down, and obstacles came on the screen. You just had to go up and either go above them or below them, and you held down a button to move up, and then you let go of the button to fall back down. And I did the same thing, but instead of a helicopter, it was a dog.
Oh
Um,
yeah, doggy
yeah, and
bird.
that was probably yeah probably one of the biggest projects I've done in the past. It like lasted years and years, and it was when I was first learning programming, so it was a really good project that I kept on coming back to after I'd learnt about
Yeah,
um
nice.
like what was it? Um just like programming concepts, like even stuff like arrays. Oh, arrays. Now this code is nicer. Like it was really early days. Um yeah. Um and yeah, that was really cool. I had my dad was helping me with learning about website stuff, so I ended up even it got so I ended up having a website that you could log into, and as you're flying through the levels, your dog can collect bones. And then what happened was you could this is inspired by Neopets, I guess, but those bones would be tracked on the website, and then you could go to other areas of the website. You could play. There was a house game, and you could the more bones you collected, you could then open the house game, and you spend those bones to build a house.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
Yeah, and yeah, so it was actually ended up getting really involved, and I was really excited about
So
that for a
that was
while.
like a separate
Uh,
application that you had to launch, or was that something within the same game, but you had to like step out of normal gameplay to get back
yes,
there?
yeah, different games. So the Flying Dog game would send your bone number of bones to the server.
Yeah.
Then you would close that game, navigate through the website to the other game, and
Yeah, that's
then yeah,
cool.
use the bones in there.
I've been thinking about doing a similar sort of thing for my games. I haven't implemented it yet, but I've added a check to see if there is any save data for my other games present on the hard drive when you
Cool.
launch Bone Sweeper, so that I can sort of say, okay, well, if you've been actively playing Bone Sweeper on this computer, then I can give you something nice in. Sorry, if you've been playing Hive Time on this computer, I can give you something nice in Bone Sweeper to celebrate that.
Yeah, that's a cool idea. Yeah, yeah, I never really thought about it. So of course, you can go and read any game's data.
Yeah, yeah.
You can even reward
I can
people for
say
playing Hollow Knight.
I can
It's like, oh
punish
well, I
people for
know where
playing
Hollow Knight
GTA or
stores the.
something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like that idea of I don't really like the idea of excuse me making things exclusive, but I do like I feel like if I just go hey like you can get a cool bee hat if you've played Hive Time, you can one of the customization options becomes like something bee themed that you can put on your character. That feels fun.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so that Flying Dog game is an old project. It had you could even spend bones to customize your dog and buy it hats, and that would have been inspired by Team Fortress 2 at the
Yep,
time.
yep.
In fact, I think I might have traced over some of the TF2 hats
Oh
and
wow.
vectorized them. And oh, and I had a little scarf. You could buy a scarf, and then when you're flying through the level, the scarf flaps behind you. So I had a scarf animation.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
rad.
there was so much in the game. That's right. So I had a few Flash games, and they were all kind of tried to be tied together with. I had achievements as well. That was really anyway. It was very involved. This whole website with all these games on it. But yeah, then Flash died, and it's like, okay, well, that's
Yeah,
the end of that project.
that's a
um,
slight bummer.
yeah, yeah.
I'm not super
Um,
into Flash myself, but yeah, the loss of that to the extent that it's been lost. I mean, there are still tools you can use to get things up and running. Like there are kind of options there, but just in terms of being able to say, hey, here's my game. Um, yeah, it's much harder to disseminate stuff to potential players.
yep.
It is a bummer.
I think I think at the time I looked into tools to convert all the code to HTML5, and there wasn't much, but it might have improved since then.
Yeah, I've come across a couple things, but like I said, I don't have any investment in that, so it's not something that I've really got any first-hand experience with.
Yep. So after that, I would have started doing. So I did a uh, what's it called? IT degree. What am I trying to say here? I did a degree of computing. That was it,
Yep.
and did a major in games technology. So I did a bit of games development at
Where was that?
when I was studying University of Tasmania,
Okay,
and
so that's
it
relatively recent then.
was yeah, it was where it was in I graduated in 2013.
Oh wow,
Really?
I
Oh,
I
hang on,
didn't even know they had game stuff going
2015.
back that far.
2015. But yeah, somewhere around there. Um, and so we did mostly Unity there. We made a cool grapple game that was really cool. It was like 3D. You could shoot a grapple onto surfaces and shoot off and then start, use your momentum to get to places. And that was a really cool
Nice.
game. Um, I think that was called. Oh, I think it was called Hooked. No,
Okay.
no, no, no. I think it was just called Grapple Game. Probably just called Grapple Game. Um, yeah. Um, Sorry, I'm passing a phone to somebody so you can read a message. Uh, um, and sorry, got distracted. So
It's all
there was
good.
that grapple game, and then I kind of used Unity for a little bit. If you look on my itch page, there's a couple of old Unity games in there. There's one called Ripple and one called Flop. I think they're both Unity games.
Yeah.
And more recently, I've moved on to Monogame. Yeah, it's just a little bit more, a bit more control over things, I suppose.
How are you finding working with that kind of tool?
It, it's interesting. I don't want to be too negative about the community, but the Discord is very dramatic for a
Oh,
but for a game development Discord. It's quite dramatic. Everyone has very strong opinions.
okay.
Um,
Well, I
and a
mean,
lot of the opinions, yeah,
I guess it kind of makes sense. I mean, people who choose to use. So I would think of Monogame as a almost like a framework.
yeah,
I
it
guess
can
it
be,
is
yeah.
an engine, as it's got a lot more going on than say another framework like SDL or Allegro. It's a lot more
Mm,
like very game specific stuff. But I think anyone who uses something like Monogame is explicitly choosing to use something like Monogame, whereas people who use Unity, for example, might be just using that because that's what's there, right? Like you're not gonna. I don't think it makes sense to view something like Monogame as a default, and the fact that it requires some degree of specific choice leads people to have opinions and principles that those choices are based on, and so I think it just sort of inherently leads towards some strong opinions. And the same goes for like Linux, for example. Like nobody uses Linux by default. It's not something that someone accidentally uses in
yeah, yeah.
general. Everybody who uses it has a reason for using it, and those reasons are going to come into how they see and feel about other people operating in the same space, you know?
Hmm.
That's my guess.
So you just started cutting out for me.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, hang
Um,
on, my computer's about.
well, I think that probably wraps up the the conversation then. I imagine that Splerp here has just run out of battery power, as we said was just coming up. Um, yeah, I've just popped some links in chat here. I will pop some links in the description when the archive of this goes up for people who would like to check out Splerp's work. I think that the uh, the Owl, the Thief, and the Strawberries is very, very exciting, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. I hope that if you're interested, you will give it a follow and itch and keep track of what's going on. The builds that are on there now are much older than what I've been playing here, but I think Splerp said he was planning to update those at some point in the future. But anyway, thank you to everybody who's been watching and throwing in questions. Thank you again to Splerp for sharing some thoughts and memories and things with us. And yeah, goodbye. Where's my button? It's here. It's here. Thanks for watching.